Little Gilbert, how was your trip in China? Robert Iger and Little Gilbert greeted each other. Very good, said Little Gilbert, who poured tea for Robert Iger. To taste it, this is the tea I brought from China. When you get used to drinking coffee, you can drink tea made with hot water, which is a strange experience and tastes a little strange. Robert Iger didn't think it was delicious, but he had come to talk to Little Gilbert about the new project, so he praised it against his will. It's delicious. It's really delicious. Gilbert Jr. didn't dismantle him, but said, Bob, the idea of a new project has been lingering in my head for a long time. This time, I'm afraid it will take a lot of investment. Given the success of 3 consecutive films, Robert Iger's confidence in Gilbert Jr. skyrocketed. I think whatever you make, you can be successful. Hopefully. Gilbert Jr. took out the script he had prepared and handed it to Robert Iger. While he was flipping through it, Gilbert Jr. said, Warner also received my script. We worked together happily last time, and I hope we will work together this time. Before he came, Robert Iger knew that Gilbert Jr. had submitted the script to Warner, so he hurried over. He actually wanted to kick Warner out, but he couldn't, and Jeff Robinoff licked him like a dog, licking him sick. But people don't want to be ashamed, and he can't ask for face, and he has to lick it together. Now, if Little Gilbert wants to see tap dancing, he can learn from Michael Ovitz and climb on the table and do a funny tap dance. No way. Little Gilbert has that value now. The new screenplay is a sci-fi action genre called Iron Fist, based on Richard Mameson's short story, Iron Armor. This writer is not familiar to many people, but his other novel, I Am Legend, is widely known and has been adapted into a film twice. But the most well-known version of the movie has not yet come out. Spielberg's first feature film, also based on the novel by Richard Matheson. Under Spielberg's recommendation, Gilbert Jr. successfully obtained the copyright of Iron Armor. The script was quickly handed over to Disney executives and Warner executives for discussion. The story of this film is very interesting. It tells the story of robot boxing. This setting has made high-level discussions a lot, and this person's boxing story is still interesting, but robot boxing? The higher-ups are not sure, but it is not surprising to think that the director and screenwriter is Gilbert Jr. It's no surprise that young people want to shoot such wonderful stories. Although there is a foundation for past results, Gilbert Jr.'s investment of at least $80 million is enough to make the film company hesitate for a while. In the face of tens of millions of dollars of investment, the hesitation and prudence of any film company is inevitable. Little Gilbert was not in a hurry. He slowly gathered the team members who were on vacation to come back and start the preliminary preparations. Sophia, help me go to the Screenwriters Union to recruit people and ask if there are any screenwriters who are interested in coming to the studio to work as screenwriters. Little Gilbert commanded. Aren't you done with your script? Sofia Coppola asked curiously. It's not this project. I have a couple of other scripts on hand, and I need a couple of screenwriters to help me with them. Little Gilbert is quite busy with his own work and has limited energy, and it is necessary to find a screenwriter to help. Okay, Sophia understood and went to contact the Writers Guild. Gilbert Jr. and art director Serena Hayfield said, I need you to design different robot images as tall and powerful as possible, with an industrial aesthetic. The specific design requirements will be discussed later. Do you want to make a mock-up? Or is it all computer special effects design? Serena Hayfield asked. Make 1 or 2 physical objects to see the effect. If it is publicized at that time, it will also be a selling point. Gilbert Jr. said. As requested, Serena Heffy immediately set to work on the design. At the same time, Little Gilbert said to assistant director and Burton, I need a little male lead, about 12 or 13 years old, to help me find it in the Screen Actors Guild. If you can't do it, just hold an audition and pick the right lead. Sophia came back after the phone call and suggested, "Can you let Scarlett play it?" Scarlett. Gilbert Jr. was moved for a while, but finally rejected the offer. Let Scarlett make a cameo appearance. Let's find other young actors. Over time, Touchstone Pictures and Warner Pictures quickly agreed to the idea of Iron Fist. Then there is the issue of Gilbert's personal treatment. 3 movies in a row have been hits, so that Gilbert Jr. has the capital to open his mouth. Agent Sheena Boone shouted a $15 million base salary, plus a 20% box office share deal capped in North America. But this director's contract will definitely not be accepted by Touchstone Pictures and Warner Pictures. However, both parties have reached a consensus, which is nothing more than a difference in the details of the contract. Finally, at the end of July, the two sides discussed the details of the contract. Touchstone Pictures and Warner Pictures, Muskmelon Studios, plus several smaller investors, jointly invested $80 million. After the part of Speed of Life and Death was received, little Gilbert naturally would not let go of the opportunity to invest in his own film and asked for this investment opportunity. Warner and Touchstone, who were eager to sign a contract with Gilbert Jr., didn't think much about it and happily agreed to the $10 million investment of the Melon Studio. Touchstone Pictures and Warner each paid $30 million for the film's North American and overseas distribution. The remaining $10 million was divided among 7 or 8 small investors. Director Gilbert Jr., together with the remuneration of the screenwriter and producer, has a basic salary of $8.5 million plus a stepped box office share, with a maximum of 10%. In order to compete for investment opportunities, Gilbert Jr. made concessions in terms of personal treatment. Of course, directors are generally not as paid as star actors as much, which is also a reason. This directorial contract means that Gilbert Jr. has officially entered the ranks of Hollywood first-line directors. In order to celebrate this good news, Warner Pictures and Touchstone Pictures held a special project press conference, and many media reporters came. In the face of reporters' questions, little Gilbert replied very calmly, "The new work is an action sci-fi film with a bit of warmth and blood." When asked why he continued to work with Touchstone Pictures and Warner Pictures, Gilbert Jr. casually said, "The two companies are my firm partners, and when I have a new idea, I immediately think of working with them." Little Gilbert's movie is finally not the situation that no one cared about before, and it can attract the attention of many media reporters. After signing the director's contract, Touchstone Pictures and Warner's promotional work was done in advance. What Keanu Reeves will play the male lead, Julia Roberts, Jodie Foster, and other actresses are the female lead, and so on. Of course, these news are fake, and their purpose is mainly to tell fans that little Gilbert's latest work has entered the project stage. Please pay attention. As long as people who follow entertainment and movies can notice that a movie called Iron Fist is about to start filming, it will be considered a success. As for hyping the protagonist candidate, it is a common trick, and as far as the project Iron Fist is concerned, Keanu Reeves is not suitable for the leading actor. In fact, the signing was completed yesterday, and Gilbert Jr.'s team also passed the relevant audits of Touchstone Pictures and Warner Pictures and entered the crew. And Burton served as first assistant director, Sofia Coppola as second assistant director, and Dur Randolph as director of photography. The producers who worked with Gilbert Jr. are still Charles Rowan and Kane Waxman. Soon, the team members returned to Los Angeles after their vacations and officially began to prepare for the movie, Iron Fist. Some readers may wonder how to shoot Iron Fist with the special effects technology of that era. If you look at Jurassic Park, released in 1993, you should know that the production cost of Jurassic Park is $63 million. In fact, Judging from the current technology, the special effects of Jurassic Park are very backward. But in those days, it seemed so real, and we just had to make it feel real to the audience in the 90s. The later commercial blockbusters one after another, especially big projects like The Lord of the Rings, as a protagonist from a big online movie director, lacks experience in big projects. Therefore, it is necessary to arrange an A-level commercial film with a large investment amount but not much difficulty in shooting for the protagonist. The protagonist doesn't have a golden finger, so there must always be a process of growth. After the director's contract and team member contract were signed, Disney and Warner, as well as small investors, all transferred funds to the accounts of third-party insurance companies. After getting the box office share of Life and Death, Gilbert Jr. also invested $10 million in the name of Muskmelon Studio, accounting for 1/8 of the investment share. The third-party insurance system is troublesome, and every financial expenditure of the crew needs to be reviewed by a third-party insurance company. The third-party insurance system also protects the interests of the film's investors and producers, and protects the film from overdue or unfinished films, as well as various accidents and losses. Gilbert Jr. actually didn't like to operate under this system because the procedure was cumbersome. But not to mention him now, even Spielberg and James Cameron combined have to complete the production of the film under the third-party insurance system. Individuals can't compete with the rules of the entire industry, and Gilbert Jr. knows this very well. Hollywood is not a martial arts world of revenge, nor is it a decisive male protagonist of Chinese online novels. It's full of interests, compromises, deals, politics. When there is no certain capital, they shout and kill, rush to hold the copyright themselves, and shout to change the world, and the result must be crushed. For example, in the movie The Grim Reaper, Gilbert Jr. invests in the conversion of salary. If you occupy a tenth of the share, it is reasonable to get a full tenth of the income. But in fact, in addition to the box office's share, in terms of videotape and TV copyright, Gilbert Jr. can enjoy a share, and the production of sequels cannot bypass him. The other peripherals are divided into parts, which have nothing to do with little Gilbert and belong to Disney. If it weren't for Disney's live-action business being too stretched, promising Gilbert Jr. the conditions for the sequel, Disney would not have had to buy the sequel copyright from Gilbert Jr. One of Hollywood's default unspoken rules is that non-major investors do not acquire long-term rights to films. Gilbert Jr. can of course oppose it, but that will inevitably touch the core interests of the studio. Not only the giants, but even the second and third-tier production and distribution companies will not allow foreign investors to get the long-term copyright of the film. The reason why Hollywood giants are giants is not only because they have strong distribution capabilities and wide channels, but also because they control tens of thousands of film copyrights. When Panasonic acquired Universal Pictures, it also had to spend money to buy Universal Pictures' huge film and television rights library, which is the reason. These things are cash cows. Some films just look at the box office, but they lose money. But as long as the copyright is in your hands, you can reap the long-term benefits. Since George Lucas's Star Wars, there has been a significant change in Hollywood. The share of box office revenue has decreased dramatically, and the revenue from peripheral rights has increased, and this trend has become more and more obvious in recent years. The Melon Studio occupies 1/8 of the investment share and can make profits from the box office and peripheral income such as videotapes and TV rights, and Gilbert Jr. is satisfied. Of course, he would not overestimate the credibility of unscrupulous film companies. Kevin, an accountant who has worked happily with several projects, will be fully involved in the preparation, shooting, post-production, publicity, and financial audit of the film's revenue sharing with his team. Kevin was also shrewd and did not ask for a fixed pay, but asked for a 5% cut. This is inevitable. It is impossible for Hollywood to happen in Hollywood when the spirit of the king is angry in the novel. The little brother will bow his head, and he will work for you without money. If someone doesn't want money, or just a small amount of money and gives you a job, then you have to be careful. There is definitely fraud. Shortly after the launch event, in an office provided by Warner, a preparatory meeting for Iron Fist was underway. The financial officer of a third-party insurance company reported a lot of dizzying financial expenses. The film has no beginning and end. The actors have not been selected, and the first $10 million have been thrown out. In the movie Iron Fist, the most important thing is the design of special effects and robots. In Hollywood, no company does these jobs better than ILM. The tens of millions of dollars were thrown to industrial light and magic. However, this is far from enough, and it is estimated that $4 or $5 million will be burned one after another to achieve the effect that Gilbert Jr. wants. From the point of view of little Gilbert, the special effects technology of today is a little behind that of a few decades later. But the dinosaurs in Spielberg's Jurassic Park have been done to amaze audiences in this era, which makes little Gilbert have confidence in the movie Iron Fist. After listening to the financial work, Gilbert Jr. and the team discussed the casting issue. The first production manager of the crew is Kane Weckerman, who works happily with Gilbert Jr., and the second production manager is Charles Rowan. Together with little Gilbert, the three constitute the first layer with the highest power in the crew. The rest, the bosses of each group, the managers, are eligible to participate in the project preparation meeting. Unlike the more silent Kane Waxman, Charles Rowan is very active in the management of the crew. In the selection of the male lead, Charles Rowan suggested, "In the selection of the male lead, I think Tom Cruise is very suitable." However, his agent proposed to change the male protagonist's son to a daughter. Before Charles Rowan finished speaking, he looked into little Gilbert's eyes and shut up instantly. Well, he still can't forget his Tom Cruise. Little Gilbert glanced at Charles Rowan, turned around and said, "I think it's good to choose Sylvester Stallone. He himself has played a boxer, and the male protagonist Charlie is also a boxer." Kane Waxman questioned, "Will Stallone say yes?" After all, we didn't have a very pleasant time in the competition between Life and Death and Mighty Mountains before. Gilbert Jr. said he didn't have to worry. It's normal business competition. It's normal to compete and cooperate, and Mr. Stallone must know that. Send him an invitation first, and at the same time put Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis as alternatives. Kane Waxman nodded, and he usually talks about actors. If he could, Gilbert Jr. would prefer Hugh Jackman. But at this time, Uncle Wolf doesn't seem to have debuted yet, and he is also very young, not suitable for being the male lead. This movie does not have a very heavy heroine role, mainly robot boxing and father-son relationship. However, there are still female characters, and there are many scenes. Regarding the selection of the heroine Bailey, I propose that Naomi Watts play the role. Charles, what do you think? Little Gilbert asked. Naomi. Charles Rowan actually wants to change to a more popular heroine. But Naomi Watts is Gilbert Jr.'s pillow man, and he can't object, so he can only say, "Let's audition." Audition. It's basically certain. Petite women have made great progress recently, and after starring in Life and Death, she has played important roles in several movies one after another, and she is also a familiar face in Hollywood, and it is not a big problem to handle such a role. There is also a female character, that is, the villain in the play, the role of the rich second-generation daughter. If he could, little Gilbert would have liked to have Gwyneth Paltrow play, and her personality would have fitted the role. But Gwyneth Paltrow's popularity is rising rapidly, and she will not play this kind of supporting role. She is currently filming Mrs. Pike's Lover and has also collaborated with Nicole Kidman on The Edge of Body Heat, and has a new boyfriend. However, according to Verona Ryder, Gwyneth is not very happy with the new boyfriend's functioning, believing that he is not as good as little Gilbert. Verona Ryder and Johnny Depp had a complete falling out, and they looked for Gilbert Jr. a few times later. After all, little Gilbert is a friend of women, of course. He has to take care of and comfort the sad and frustrated woman, and the two spent the spring festival together a few times. The rebellious girl also shared her experience of stealing from the supermarket with little Gilbert and said that it was very exciting and invited little Gilbert to go with her. Little Gilbert refused. This was caught, and his reputation was discredited. He also advised Verona Ryder to share a little. With her current popularity, there is no problem in steadily going to the front line. After all, there have been a few good times, and if it were someone else, little Gilbert would never say more about these words. But whether Verona Ryder listened or not, I don't know. The role of the rich second-generation daughter, as well as several other important supporting roles, will eventually be auditioned to see the effect before making a decision. And the second most important role in the film is undoubtedly his son Max. Little Gilbert told the assistant director and to go to the Actors Guild to find a suitable young actor. In the end, after selection and introduction, and handed over some information, and at the same time introduced, these young actors are basically between the ages of 10 and 14, and they have experience in movies and TV series. Little Gilbert looked through the information in his hand and asked, "And which one do you think is good?" Ryan Reynolds, who has appeared in several series and films, and pulled out a document and handed it to little Gilbert. 17. Little Gilbert frowned and immediately vetoed it. It's too old to be suitable. Then let's audition and see which little actor is suitable. Charles Rowan suggested. Little Gilbert thought about it and nodded in agreement. After the preparatory work, Gilbert Jr. communicated with the team members about some details, and the general work arrangement was over. Preparing for the film project, every job is detailed, and little Gilbert has to ask questions so that he knows the preliminary work of the crew well. Only in this way, when entering the production stage, can he accurately grasp the situation of each link. After the preparatory meeting, producer Kane Wexman quickly extended an invitation to Stallone, and he quickly received a response from the CAA. Stallone is an artist under CAA, and the previous summer file was also because of The Mighty Mountains promoted by CAA, which made Stallone and Speed of Life and Death very unpleasant. However, Stallone has been in Hollywood for so long, and of course he will not let his personal emotions affect his judgment. Little Gilbert, a director who is on the rise, can come to him to act regardless of his previous suspicions, and Stallone was surprised and actively considered agreeing to the invitation. However, he forgot about CAA, especially Michael Ovitz and Martin Bob, who were bent on bringing packaging services into Gilbert Jr.'s crew. The big hit of Life and Death has long made Michael Ovitz and Martin Bob covetous. Since little Gilbert proposed to let Sylvester Stallone play the male lead, why not take this opportunity to let the packaging service enter little Gilbert's crew? So, after Stallone made it clear that he was interested, Martin Bob personally came out to negotiate with the crew on behalf of Stallone. Charles Rowan and Kane Wexman were in charge of the talks with Martin Bob, while Gilbert Jr. was also involved in the negotiations. However, the initial contact did not go well. After a brief greeting, the two sides officially started talking. "We sincerely invite Mr. Stallone to play the male lead. I don't know Mr. Stallone's." Of course Sylvester Stallone is interested, otherwise he wouldn't have had the opportunity to talk today. However, Kane Wexman's words were interrupted by Martin Bob. Mr. Stallone is very interested in the role of Charlie, and CAA is also interested in this project. This kind of thing must be what CAA is going to propose. Kane Wexman didn't go around in circles. "Let's just say it, Martin. What are the conditions of CAA? Martin Bob looked confident. It's very simple. Except for the director Gilbert Jr., leave this project to CAA to package and operate. He added, CAA is very optimistic about the profitability of this project and is confident that with our operation, the film will be a great success. This strong appearance seems to let little Gilbert see Disney chairman Michael Eisner. In fact, the reason why CAA is so strong in the face of film companies is because they have too many scarce resources in Hollywood. Spielberg, Tom Cruise, Sylvester Stallone, Julia Roberts, Jodie Foster, Tom Hanks. Which of the above names is brought out? It is a well-known existence in Hollywood, and it is also a strong guarantee for box office hits. This is also the reason why CAA is so strong in the face of film companies. After all, so many well-known directors and artists are my people. You don't have to find someone else to replace you. You can only agree to CAA's conditions. But one thing is clear to Gilbert Jr. is that although the CAA is strong, they are definitely not popular in Hollywood. Their packaging services continue to pile up the cost of film production, and they also meddle in the revenue sharing of movies that previous agencies have not interfered with. However, this is only temporary, and Hollywood studios are all granddad, and they certainly cannot tolerate this kind of insatiable behavior. The reason why it still exists is because the packaging service policy has indeed brought benefits to many films. Once the packaging service does not work one day, it is inevitable that it will be completely liquidated by Hollywood studios. Michael Ovitz and Martin Bob also saw this, and after the failure of the Alien 3 packaging service project, they were in dire need of a new spokesperson. And Gilbert Jr. is that popular candidate. It's just that, unlike Martin Bob's imagination, the two producers still have no opinions, and Gilbert Jr. said directly, Martin, I refuse the conditions of CAA. I can't accept the packaging service. Martin Bob was stunned for a moment and then threatened, Little Gilbert, don't forget, Mr. Stallone has played a boxer, and there is no better fit for the role of a boxer than him. Indeed, the Rocky movie series has created the classic image of a boxer. When you think of boxers, you think of Stallone. But little Gilbert firmly refused. Martin, this is Hollywood, and there is no one who cannot be replaced. Charles Rowan stood up and eased the atmosphere and said, Martin, we still need to discuss this matter, and we will inform you as soon as there is progress. All right then, as soon as possible. Mr. Stallone has a tight schedule and won't have that much time. Martin Bob stood up, glanced at little Gilbert, didn't even hold his hand, and walked away. When Martin Bob left, there was a brief silence in the room. Charles Rowan asked Gilbert Jr., What now? What to do? Gilbert Jr. clapped his hands and said, Replacement, choose Bruce Willis. He is not from CAA. This is easy to talk about. The Clayman was still angry, and Martin Bob's attitude annoyed him. Little Gilbert didn't believe it. Without Butcher Zhang, he wouldn't be able to eat this hairy pig. Kane Wackersman worried. If the CAA is hyping up this, how are we going to deal with it? In terms of media resources, will Warner and Disney still be afraid that CAA will not succeed? Little Gilbert asked rhetorically. Nature is not afraid of. That's not it. But CAA dared to use this matter to hype it outside, and the media of Warner and Disney spit on one by one, drowning CAA. Little Gilbert's words woke up the dreamer, making Kane Waxman and Charles Rowan react. Yes, no matter how strong a brokerage company is, it is only a brokerage company. Can't it be compared with a large media group like us? I have to say that the previous strength of CAA did give major Hollywood studios a psychological shadow and a sense of fear. After being woken up by little Gilbert, this feeling disappeared in an instant. On the other side, Martin Bob is back at CAA, where Stallone is waiting for him. How did it turn out? Stallone asked with concern. Martin Bob shook his head and said, It's not very good. Little Gilbert rejected our offer. How so? Stallone looked disappointed and frowned. Martin Bob added fuel to Stallone what happened at the meeting. He hid a lot of details and added a lot of details. It is a dream to say that little Gilbert is disrespectful, scolding Stallone for being just a lucky person and vainly wanting to put forward higher conditions. With Martin Bob's encouragement, Stallone's dislike for little Gilbert rose sharply, and the grumpy Sildren Stallone immediately thought about taking revenge on little Gilbert. However, Martin Bob stopped Stallone's impulsive behavior. Don't get excited. Let's find a competitor for Iron Fist to frustrate little Gilbert's spirit. Stallone thought this was a good idea, so he asked, "Which movie are you going to look for?" Martin Bob replied, "How about True Lies?" A little earlier than Iron Fist, James Cameron's True Lies soon entered the preparatory filming stage. The tyrant on the set chose to work with Arnold Schwarzenegger again and invited Jamie Lee and Curtis, a Hollywood A-list actress, to co-star. The film cost a whopping $115 million to produce, which was definitely a super investment in Hollywood in the 90s. Such a project must be a project that is watched by all of Hollywood, and any agency wants to intervene. It is worth mentioning that the tyrant on the set originally planned to shoot Spider-Man, but in the end, due to technical problems, it was replaced by True Lies. At this time, just after the unpleasant meeting between Gilbert Jr. and Martin Bob, the roar of a tyrant on the set was heard at the preparatory meeting for True Lies. "I would never accept to be a puppet of CAA. As long as I am in Hollywood for a day, this kind of thing will never happen." After that, the tyrant on the set greeted Michael Ovitz and Martin Bob and their families in a language mixed with beautiful words such as Farker and Shet. Martin Bob, who had touched a big nail in James Cameron's place, returned to CAA with a grim face and scolded James Cameron's rudeness in Michael Owitz's office. "This visionless waste director, this is the achievement of his life. I think he will go back to be a truck driver in the future." James Cameron is more difficult than little Gilbert. No matter what, little Gilbert always maintains a polite attitude and is very personable. But the truck driver was no such person, and he scolded Martin Bob in the most arrogant and rude tone in front of everyone. In such a comparison, little Gilbert actually looks a lot cuter. Michael Ovitz soothed his left and right hands. "Don't be nervous, Martin. True Lies won't work. We can prepare another project." "What project?" Martin Bob asked curiously. "How about Interview with the Vampire?" "Interview with the Vampire? Wasn't it put on hold by Warner?" Michael Ovitz explained. "Warner and Universal Pictures have done some resource exchanges, and now this project belongs to Universal, and Universal has handed over this project to us, and I will give it to you." A sneer appeared on the corner of Martin Bob's mouth. "Don't worry, Michael. I'll build a super luxurious lineup for the film." After discussing with Michael Ovitz, Martin Bob personally went to Pat Kinley's office, and he wanted Tom Cruise to star in Interview with the Vampire. It was also an opportunity for Pat Kinley's, who nodded in agreement with Martin Bob's request. So the two went their separate ways. Martin Bob went to convince Universal Pictures, while Pat Quinlith went to visit Tom Cruise at Cruise Manor. Tom Cruise was of course interested in the project, and when he heard that the film was meant to be used to thwart Gilbert Jr.'s new work, he readily agreed. He expressed his willingness to cooperate with little Gilbert, but the little director didn't react. Isn't it worth the excitement of little Gilbert to work with the great Tom Cruise? Little Gilbert doesn't give face, and the great Tom Cruise is angry. He decided to let the little director increase his memory, and then came to him to cooperate. After Pat Kinley's left, he told his wife, Nicole Kidman, it's obviously wise to use Interview with the Vampire to snipe that Iron Fist. The original novel Interview with the Vampire has a wide range of fans, and compared to Iron Armor, which is not watched by many people, the hope of winning is greater. Nicole Kidman doesn't think so. She has a good relationship with Naomi Watts and keeps in touch with each other. From Naomi Watts, she also understands little Gilbert's personality and abilities. This is a talented director full of ideas and strong business ability. They have no contradiction with little Gilbert, so it's better not to offend rashly. Otherwise, according to little Gilbert's character, he might be recorded in a small notebook. But Nicole Kidman is also aware of her husband's character, arrogant, and at this juncture, she can't listen to any advice. So Nicole Kidman decided to ask her friend Naomi Watts about the situation and find out what was going on. The next day, in a cafe, Nicole Kidman meets the radiant Naomi Watts. Naomi, it seems to be in good shape lately, much better than when I first came to Los Angeles. Nicole Kidman and Naomi Watts greetings. Naomi Watts smirked. It's okay, Mary. Thanks to you. I'm doing well now. After a brief greeting between the two, Nicole Kidman began to talk. Naomi, I heard that little Gilbert's latest work is in preparation. Will you participate? Naomi Watts nodded excitedly, not doubting Nicole Kidman's purpose in asking these questions. She didn't know much about herself, and she didn't get the script, but she had already got the promise of Gilbert Jr. I will play the heroine, although there are still not too many scenes, but the salary has risen a lot, and I am still the #1 woman. Naomi Watts' excited tone made Nicole Kidman's heart ripple. This petite woman, who came to Los Angeles and relied on her to take care of her, now relies on little Gilbert to break out of her own world. As for her, she tried her best to become Tom Cruise's wife, but she could only be treated as a vassal. Nicole Kidman carefully hid this fluctuating thought, and she smiled and congratulated. Naomi, congratulations. I'm very happy for you. Naomi Watts didn't seem to notice Nicole Kidman's careful thoughts, still with that sweet smile. Thank you, Mary. At the end of the meeting, Naomi Watts immediately went to meet Sheena Boone and told her about the meeting between the two. Sheena Boone also has acquaintances within CAA, so she asked someone about the situation. Although I don't know the whole picture, I know that CAA is prepared. So Sheena Boone hurried to meet Gilbert Jr., who was busy preparing Iron Fist, to remind him to pay attention. You're saying that CAA is going to stop me with Interview with the Vampire? Little Gilbert asked. That's right, Sheena Boone said, gesturing to Naomi Watts, who was following her. Naomi was the first to find out and told me in time. Naomi, good job. Little Gilbert praised. Little Gilbert's approval made the petite woman very happy. These are all things I should do, little Gilbert. Nicole Kidman was her good sister, and she turned around and sold her good sister. It can't be helped. She relies on little Gilbert. Besides, Nicole Kidman's purpose was not pure, let alone anyone. Little Gilbert is also quite curious. There are so many Hollywood directors. Why does this CAA just bite him and also prepare a big move to deal with him? Didn't you say that the tyrant on the set embarrassed Martin Bob in public? Why don't you target the tyrant on the set? I can't figure it out, but little Gilbert still can't be careless. After all, it is a combination of CAA and Tom Cruise, and there is also Brad Pitt in my impression, which is a great threat. But little Gilbert didn't panic, and from the moment he entered Hollywood, he expected a similar situation. How can there be smooth sailing? Any first-line Hollywood director is killed from the fierce competition. Now that the atmosphere is here, it's better to put on a posture and do it this time. Since you want to fight in the ring, you can't do it if the guy in your hand is not competent. Movies are weapons, and only when the weapons are done can they dare to be tough. Without this weapon, little Gilbert would not dare to be confident. The male lead was quickly finalized, and after CAA helped Stallone reject the project, the crew quickly sent an invitation to Bruce Willis. Compared to the difficult CAA, Bruce Willis, who is under ICM, is obviously much easier to contact. In the past 2 years, with the Die Hard series, Bruce Willis has gradually stepped into the position of a first-line actor in Hollywood. When he heard that little Gilbert had sent him an invitation for a new work, he was very interested and quickly instructed his agent to accept the offer. Bruce Willis was interested, and Gilbert Jr. was also very happy, and the two sides had a pleasant conversation. After the contract was negotiated, Bruce Willis signed his name on the actor's contract, becoming the second confirmed actor in the crew. Compared with the smooth casting of the male and female protagonists, the selection of the young actors of the second male protagonist made it difficult for the crew. Auditions went on, but Gilbert Jr. never found Max. In fact, there is a suitable actor named Elijah Wood. But the kid was CAA, and now little Gilbert has a feud with CAA, and CAA refuses the offer on the grounds that Elijah Wood needs to learn. Gilbert Jr. can't, and he can't bypass the CAA to invite Elijah Wood to star unless he agrees to do so. But things soon took a turn for the better, and Disney's child star talent show Mickey Mouse Club recommended a child to the crew, 13-year-old Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling has been acting since he was a child, participating in the school's drama club and the local dance club. What is rare is that the little boy sings well, and there is a sense of all-round development. So, after an audition, Ryan Gosling's excellent performance conquered the director team and the two producers and successfully won the role of the second male Max. The main roles are all done and the other characters are easy to say, and they will soon be set to 7, 7, 8, 8. One night, Gilbert Jr. returned to his apartment to rest after finishing his studio, and Cameron Diaz, who had just finished filming a movie, also returned. Michelle, how were the auditions for Strange Jack in Disguise? Gilbert Jr. is also concerned about Cameron Diaz's auditions. Is different from the audition road full of twists and turns in his previous life, and now Cameron Diaz has enough capital. After listening to little Gilbert's words, she went to fight for the heroine of Strange Heroes in Disguise. It went well, and after a simple audition, I became the candidate for the heroine. Cameron Diaz helped little Gilbert with a massage and did not forget to show off. I am the second actor to be confirmed. That's good. Little Gilbert nodded, pleased with Cameron Diaz's obedience. Can listen to his own words, which shows that Cameron Diaz has not swelled, and the time to step into a first-line actress will not be too far away. By the way, Cameron walked around to little Gilbert, straddled little Gilbert's lap, hooked his hands around his neck and asked, I heard that there is a role that has not yet been decided. I want to. That's just a supporting role. You're interested? No. Cameron Diaz said, remember Sally? She has recently starred in several movies and series, but none of them have had much of a chance to perform. I thought we're good friends after all. Can you give her a chance? In the audition list, Gilbert Jr. did not see Charlize Theron's name. It is not easy to get on the audition list, and there are many twists and turns. According to what little Gilbert knows, assistant director and Burton took advantage of her position to sleep with a few little white-faced actors. If you don't sleep with her, I'm sorry, you won't be on the audition list, and you won't even have a chance to let little Gilbert see her name. Even Sofia Coppola took advantage of her position to go on a date with a handsome actor. Of course, and Burton and Sofia Coppola did not go too far and did not affect the normal work of the crew. Little Gilbert only admonished them to restrain a little. Similar situations are the norm everywhere, and little Gilbert doesn't think there's anything wrong, and when the water is clear, there are no fish. Without delaying work, without causing accidents, he is happy to open a blind eye. Besides, the decision-making power for important roles is not in the hands of the people below. It is still Gilbert Jr. and the two producers who have the final say. The daughter of the rich second generation is also an important role, and it is estimated that Charlize Theron knew that he had no hope, so he simply did not hand in his resume. Instead, follow Cameron Diaz's path and look for connections. I had heard Charlize Theron's reputation in my previous life, but it was a layer of protection compared to those actors whose names had never been heard, and little Gilbert did not refuse, and agreed directly. Great, I knew you would say yes. Cameron Diaz kissed little Gilbert on the mouth and then whispered in a mysterious tone to little Gilbert's ear, Sally's figure is great. Do you want to try it? Along with Naomi Watts, the trio also have experience in three-person sports, and Cameron Diaz doesn't blush when he says this. Little Gilbert listened to the stir, but he said, I'll get you done first. Hee hee, come on, I'm still afraid that you won't make it. There are many words in one night, and they all melt into the original blending. The next day, refreshed Gilbert Jr. informed assistant director and Burton to let Charlize Theron audition. Cameron Diaz, for his part, also told Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron was very happy that this was one of the more important opportunities she was getting, so she was worried that she would mess up her audition. Cameron Diaz, who was grinning, said, I don't care, Sally, I've already told little Gilbert. As long as your audition meets the requirements, he will definitely give you priority. Charlize Theron hoped, I hope so. Soon it was time to audition, and with the guidance of Cameron Diaz, Charlize Theron had met with Sofia Coppola several times beforehand and learned from her the general characteristics of the role she auditioned for. On the day of the audition, Charlize Theron designed her look, taking advantage of her height and long legs, while highlighting the arrogant and uninhabited posture. Cameron Diaz suggested that Charlize Theron, if he can't act, just play according to the character of Gilbert Jr.'s ex-girlfriend, Gwyneth Paltrow. There are references. Charlize Theron really found the direction, and the audition session was excellent. Very good, Miss Theron. You're doing what I expected, Gilbert Jr. said. After a short performance, Charlize Theron waited very modestly and said, These are all characteristics that I should play. Very good, Gilbert Jr. communicated with the directorial team. How does it feel? Assistant director and Burton said, There's no problem directing. I think it's okay. Sofia? The character's personality traits are what she revealed, and Sofia Coppola certainly supports. It's very good. I recommend using her. Without Gilbert Jr.'s permission, Sofia Coppola certainly won't tell Charlize Theron about the character. Although she agrees with her mouth, Sofia Coppola still vomits in her heart, is obviously an actor who likes himself, but he has to pull us to make a guarantee, duplicitous. This role is a major role, but obviously not that important, so this role was finalized on the spot and belonged to Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron was still dazed when she walked out of the audition hall, and she didn't react until her agent asked her how she was. Diana, I've won the role. Charlize Theron rejoiced. Charlize Theron's agent couldn't believe his ears. What did you say? Say it again. I said, we won the role. Oh my God, it's great. God has finally taken care of us. The agent drew a cross on his chest. She is also just a small agent, and she only has Charlize Theron as a client, and Charlize Theron can win a role, which proves that her career is about to set sail. So, the two immediately went to celebrating that they had finally stepped into the Hollywood circle.